Hello and welcome to another episode of The Lion's Den. My name's Toby Bennett from Black Crow Gaming, and again we are talking about Dark Angels and Wrath of the Rock in particular. So something that I have seen recently and from having conversations with people in the Discord has been this increase in like a focus towards damage output rather than point scoring. And then when I've uploaded a couple of my recent results, someone pointed out, the difference between a lot of these results is secondaries. So I was really interested in doing a video just in terms of like, let's not forget some of the best units to do those secondaries, because Wrath of the Rock is already very, very powerful at denying that primary between upping its OC, just having Deathwing Knights sit on there with -1 to wound. ICCs obviously being 2 OC if you do play the ICCs. I personally don't, but it's perfectly legitimate. So there's a lot of ways that we're already denying primary and keeping that strong presence on the scoreboard. But then how are we ensuring that we're not just focusing everything on a damage output and we're still getting across that good secondary game, just to make sure that our scores keep ticking over, because ultimately you get the same amount of points for doing secondaries as you do for doing primary, but also you can score primary a lot quicker, if that makes sense, because you can score like 15 a turn on primary. You can't do that on secondaries. So secondaries, scoring them early is less likely to give your opponent challenger cards, which is very much something relevant at the moment in the meta, because I think challenger cards have really warped how we have to play. And that denial side of the game and resource management, it's excellent, but then suddenly giving your opponent access to another resource in a challenger card, and potentially a very impactful resource, that kind of is very counterproductive to the way that we need to play. So looking to try and keep the score a little bit closer in terms of that primary, and then going for that late game push into the primary to score a little bit later, but keeping up with your secondary scores, I think is really important. I've always found that the if I pick the right unit for my secondary game, they're very good at being that early expansion target. They can get around the board very safely. They can bait my opponent out into positions that they don't want to be. They can force that opponent into the reactive mindset. And at that point, I'm in a far more dominant position. So really, really impactful, really good way that I like to play it. And also, I think because secondary scoring units tend to be sacrificial, they're low in points cost, they don't tend to be many wounds, they don't tend to be that survivable, they're viewed as sacrificial. Now, Wrath of the Rock turns sacrificial and really ups the nines. It screws with your opponent's math between its -1 to wound and other defensive buffs that you can give them. So potentially you need to think about how can that unit be relevant in the later game. And there's a few wonderful different ways. So I'm going to take you through my top 5 units that I've been really impressed with so far. And without further ado, let's kick off with the first one, and that is the Invader ATV. So this is one that I haven't featured in any of my tournament lists so far. It hadn't made the cut. And now I've played it in a couple of practice games just purely from a points perspective, where I needed to have something to score my secondaries, and I had 60 points spare, so in went the ATV. Now, ATV then demanded a place in every list, and it's actually ended up as a 2 of in my current list, because it's just been so good. For that 60 points, it's got solid damage output in that multi-melter, because usually you will probably take it with the multi-melter rather than the Dev Wounds gun. I can't think of any situation, apart from maybe if you had loads of orcs or loads of lesser demons in your meta, maybe like Horde Guard, but I don't, particularly in this meta, it's definitely the multi-melter, because that strength 9 is good at killing both armigers, war dogs, and plague drones out of Death Guard. So really, really good in that particular role, and also quite good at popping transports like rhinos. So it's got pretty solid damage output. The twin bolt rifles also aren't bad at just sort of chipping wounds off things, so I quite like them, but that multi-melter, really, that's where it shines. And as I say, it's 60 points. It's, I think, the cheapest non-character available to us. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's cheaper, and I think, in that slot you're looking at maybe suppressors at 75, assault intercessors 75, scouts, and I think that's about it. So very cheap, very, very cheap. And it's fast. It goes 12 inches naturally. It is mounted, so bit of a pain in the bum there, obviously, that it can't breach, but it's a nice small footprint, so it's easy to get around those walls. And one kind of advantage of being mounted rather than the usual, which is infantry, you avoid those nasty anti-infantry guns. And obviously we're seeing a lot of anti-infantry out of things like Death Guard. Less relevant because those bloody flamers are still strength 6. But, if you're going into something like, what are they called? Death Shroud Terminators, obviously their flamers won't be as efficient. So it's not as if they can both pick up one of your skirmish units and then kill one of your key units, by shooting the skirmish, charging the key unit. So that will really be quite beneficial. And then something that I've not been able to take advantage of yet, but I'm very excited to potentially try, is the revenge shooting. So if I'm doing an action and I get to revenge shoot in my opponent's turn, which is where if another mounted unit is shot, I think it's within 6, then that ATV, one unit, one ATV, you can't, if they shoot one then shoot the other, you can't do it twice, I don't think. You then get to revenge shoot, which is not bad. It just, again, is something that can screw with your opponent's maths. It can screw with their head. Do I want to be shot by a multi-melter? Is it worth the risk when, that's 8 wounds? 8 wounds is really quite tough. It doesn't like dying, that thing. I've been very impressed with it in terms of that break point, again, because you need 4 unsaved wounds to go through for 2 damage weapons, which is pretty solid for a single model, a single very small model, and also it doesn't go down to 2-3 damage shots, which I think is quite relevant as well. And also, if you try and get it with 1 damage, you're going to be there for a long old time. So I've been very impressed with the ATV. Decent shooting, quick, efficient. 2 OCs, not bad at all as well. If your opponent's stuck a 1 OC lone up on there, you pop the ATV on there, out OC, and then try and whack the lone up with a multi-melter shot. Can be pretty damn tasty. So very impressed with the Invader ATV. Really, really like it. And that's why I've now got 2 in my current list. So next, Vanguard vets. I think these are probably the best on the list. And that is for multiple reasons. So obviously they're really quick, 12-inch base move. Really solid damage output. There's 20 attacks with lethal on the charges. I know they're only strength 5 AP1 damage 1, but against other skirmish threats, that's really good. But the fact that they've got that speed to get there, when speed is something that Wrath of the Rock does struggle with a little bit, I really like that they have that speed. So as I say, really great damage output for that skirmish. Just be able to if your opponent, say you're playing Necrons and they've got flayed ones, you can clear them out really easily. If your opponent's got Orc Commandos, again, they're gone. Even scouts at that level of attacks can go down pretty damn quickly. So really quite solid. But because they've got that lethal hit on the charge, they can punch up, which is super relevant, where sometimes, because they've also got the grenade keyword, they can grenade and then whack them. Obviously, I'm talking about the shield Vanguard vets. You can take them with pistols, and I've seen arguments for the Inferno pistol. I think there's definitely space for it in other lists, for Wrath of the Rock, and particularly for the role that I want them to do. I am focusing exclusively on that ability to skirmish and to survive. That's really what my Vanguard vets do. So that 4-up invulnerable save is really essential, especially with that -1 to wound, because I've had so many scenarios where they've just survived far longer than they deserve to, and they've forced an opponent to commit something genuinely relevant to them, because otherwise they just munch it. And another really tasty thing about them is their Deathwing, which gives them the option to Leonin aggression at 6 inches, which is then going to give them their lethals. And it just, again, it elevates them as a skirmish threat. So if they do, say they go in, they deploy it, they establish locus, I guess it is, as it's called now, or they recover assets, and then your opponent comes close to them. Leonin aggression, they're getting them in your opponent's turn. So they're really solid. I've been really impressed with Vanguard vets so far. And for 95 points, it just makes so much sense to have at least one in. I think traditionally most of my lists have had one. Again, I've gone to 2 just to see what that looks like. But equally, I'm prepping for a teams event, so like take my new list with a pinch of salt for singles, because I have a job to do, which is not just win the game. I have a role to play within my team. Okay, so number 3, Scouts. Is anyone shocked? Scouts have been a mainstay of Space Marine armies for the entire edition, even before when we had Scouts with snipers and standard Scouts. Once the Codex came out, obviously that was slimmed down to one variation, and they're just incredible. The ability to infiltrate but then hop behind a wall if you're going second. Their skirmish ability, they've just randomly got a missile launcher in there, and those knives, now that they're AP1, really very tasty. 70 points, quite cheap. Very easy to keep them in cover, so they go up to a 3-up save still as well. And then with that access to smoke and grenades, that makes life just so much easier, because either you can enhance that damage output by grenading a threat, and you can kind of get into your opponent's face very quickly and cause problems for them, or you can smoke and, again, mess with your opponent's maths, especially if you've got things that are like weapon skill 4 shooting at you, or just like... So I had a Demon Prince, a Khorne Demon Prince shooting at me out of World Eaters, and I smoked my Scouts and it did nothing. Because they then both had cover, and he was hitting. I can't remember if it was 3s or 4s, but he was hitting a lot worse, and it didn't really feel like a problem so much. So super interesting, that one, that they've got access to the smoke keyword as well, and it gives them that little something extra. And then obviously they do have the up down ability, where if we go back and we think about what's relevant in the late game as well, a redeploy can be very useful. Obviously, it's in strategic reserves rather than deep strike, unlike a Kaladas assassin. So it can only come in within 6 inches of the board edge. But if it is in the late game and your opponent is not screening their home objective, it almost forces them to think about constantly screening their home objective. So it just gives you another little mental victory that you can kind of use over your opponent, and use that to potentially hold a resource somewhere else that you don't have to worry about. So again, very impressed with Scouts. Shock Horror at 70 points. They are an auto-include. I think they're an auto-include in most Space Marine lists. I'm yet to see like a competitively finishing Space Marine list that doesn't have at least one in. I don't know what the new Space Wolves lists are looking like, but I'd be surprised if they don't have one. Just because Scouts are so good. That infiltrate as well, just being able to like go, cool, you want to charge me turn 1, I'm not going to let you charge me turn 1, and if you try, then I'll be able to crack you back with Deathwing Knights, or I'll be able to Leonin Aggression. A lot of the time, Scouts are absolutely intrinsic for setting up my Leonin Aggression or my heroic interventions. So especially the way that both WTC and UKTC terrain is now set up, it's exceptional. Just having those options, really, really good. And in a time where Dark Angels are struggling in the meta, I think we need to try and leverage every tiny little advantage that we can. And I do think Scouts provide that. So, on to our 4th option, and that is the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. Another one that I don't think anyone is going to be surprised to see. It is a cheap low nop that is available to Space Marines. Very good. But I found the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon even better in Wrath of the Rock, because he's got stealth, low nop, reactive move, -1 to wound if strength is higher, all this really great stuff. But also a lot of the time, once he's done his job of like getting into a position where he can do some key actions for me and maybe holding my expansion objective, at that point, he can point at, obviously at the start of the game, he points at an objective, and as long as he's alive, I'm re-rolling 1s to wound on that objective. And for units like Deathwing Knights, that is so impactful. Being able to just re-roll 33% of your fails on average into a vehicle after you go at them with Maces of Absolution. That's so impactful. And again, if you can you're almost dictating to your opponent where you want to fight. And if you can do that and go, right, cool, we are fighting here, and then force them into that position, I think that really does help just excel your damage output to the next level. So there's no real downside to the Lieutenant with combi weapon. I guess the only thing is he doesn't have an invulnerable save, but he does have a feel no pain, because why not, right? But that reactive move, I think having access to at least one reactive move in your list is pretty good. I've heard reactive moves are quite good. Who'd have thought, right? We've been abusing them in Stormlance and Gladius for however long. But yeah, the Lieutenant with combi weapon is extremely powerful. And that lone op is really nice, just being able to go, cool, he's going to sit there, he's going to score me primary, or he's going to score me secondaries, or screen out this area of the board that my opponent didn't think that I'd be screening, and that's going to cause problems. And because he's got Infiltrate, he can take those key positions early. So, super impactful. Very, very useful. And I think, in all honesty, he's been the first name on the list every single time, because he just seems so good. And having a lone op to drag your opponent out to come and deal with you when you are quite a slow combat army, all the better. It just really screws with their head. And then finally, Intercessors. I was really struggling to think of a fifth. And I was like, well, what scores me lots and lots of points across the course of a game? And it's Intercessors, because they score, and also they really perfectly demonstrate that have relevance until the end game. Because they are sticky objectives, they can sticky your home objective, and then depending on when your opponent doesn't have any resources that can then push and take your home, usually from Deep Strike, they can come out and play. And those assault bolt rifles are pretty damn good. With those 20 shots, I know they're only strength 4, AP 1, damage 1, but that volume of fire will shred so many targets. And the thing is, when those Intercessors tend to start shooting, a lot of those units are degraded quite heavily already, so they only need to chip off a couple of wounds to really get their final little output. And having a Power Fist in there as well, or a Thunder Hammer if you prefer those dev wounds, there's some real play to this. And I really like the way that Intercessors can come out in that late game and not only apply pressure with that just volume of shots, but also go, hey, I'm going to put 10 OC on this objective. You've got degraded resources and I've got 10 OC here. What are you going to do? It suddenly means that 80-point, somewhat irrelevant unit that we brought as a backfield objective holder has forced resources to come at it rather than your own degraded resources that are probably standing quite close by, freeing you up to then hit them just as hard. And if they don't kill the Intercessors and they go after your degraded resources, cool, score the points, happy days. Points win prizes. But I really like Intercessors in regards to just pushing up that little bit of extra threat. Screening off the back of the board, I've found being so key. And I've spoken about the strength of inbuilt assault in Wrath of the Rock already. The ability to kind of do an advance and then still do something is very, very useful, because obviously we don't have access to that across the board anymore, like we did in, say, Gladius or Stormlance. And I think just having that, especially as a unit that is probably chilling more towards the back, the back guy is probably going to be 9 inches away from the board corner, making sure that they don't get behind your backside and ruin your day that way. So I think Intercessors really do. It feels very different to what I was going to talk about in this video, but I think they fit that bill very nicely of having relevance. late game threat potential, the ability to play at all phases of the game, and just to be frustrating for your opponent, because the best thing that a skirmish or a secondary scoring unit can do is be frustrating for your opponent, because if you're causing frustrations with units that you don't really care about, that's taking focus away from those key units and those key damage dealers, which at that point allows you to reduce the number of damage dealers and focus more on that points scoring. So that's why I really like the Intercessors. Obviously, they are just marine bodies. They don't survive that long, but -1 to wound is a hell of a drug. And it is very, very useful in this current Knight/Death Guard meta. So overall, we have ATV, Vanguard Vets, Scouts, Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, and Intercessors as our key 5 units for ensuring that we are scoring as many points as possible. So, now just to kind of round out and finish off, really want to thank our sponsors, which is Glasshammer Gaming. You can use the code BlackCrow to get 5% off. Trident Futureworks, who provide our lovely, lovely cases. They've made mine for me. That's not sponsored. I did pay for that one, but they are just really, really cool. And I think we have a discount code somewhere. It'll be on our link tree, which will be down below. Thank you so much to Dr. J again for providing his incredible artwork as my thumbnails. Really, really useful. Incredibly kind guy. If you want to join the Discord and have a nice chat with us all as well, come join. The link will be somewhere down below. There's both the Black Crow and the Angelus Mortis Discord. The Angelus Mortis Discord is for me and for my coaching. Which again is kind of reduced, but I will do the odd coaching session if people like it, because I like talking about toy soldiers. It brings me joy. So yeah, it's have I missed anyone out? I've missed out Terrain Forge. Terrain Forge do this incredible terrain sets and mats. Super useful. You use the code BCG5 to get 5% off. So if you need your own UKTC set, I'm about to go and build one of their sets at the moment. You can get it, you can do that practice, and hopefully we can see you at those super majors soon. But most importantly, thank you so much for watching. Let me know which skirmish units that you really like. Let me know what you want to see as a video as well. I love getting sort of community-based ideas. I want to produce content that you guys want to see. We've got the ITT coming up soon. So I will be sort of in prep mode for that. List submission is this Sunday. I've just found out that I've been invited to the LGT Invitational, which is super exciting. Really looking forward to that. I'm probably just filler, and I'm probably going to get smashed to 1 billion pieces, but it'll be really good fun. And I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone there that's made it to that, because I know for a fact that it's a really, really lovely group of guys. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. And remember, stay loyal, fuckers. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys. Bye.